Hi girlies, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is super exciting because I will be kicking off my wedding era. To be honest, I actually don't know how much I'm going to be sharing about my wedding content on my socials. Obviously, I want parts of my life to remain private. It's going to be a very kind of like special, intimate occasion. And generally, I want to be pretty hands-off with this wedding. I have a planner. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing a bunch of stuff regarding the wedding. So I'm definitely not going to be one of the brides that's like 2026 bride in my wedding bio because that is not what my life is going to be about. But at the same time, you guys know that I always want to create educational content for you guys. I always want to share the information that I get in case any of you guys are in similar situations or you guys are interested in the same things as I am. So this video is going to be focusing on my experience of touring a bunch of different wedding venues in Korea because ultimately I decided to get married in Korea. Now, of course, I do not know how many of you guys are actually interested in getting married in Korea, but I definitely wanted to make this video because even for myself as a Korean American, I really did not find many resources available to me to get more information about Korean weddings from an American standpoint, especially if you don't speak Korean. I feel like it's really almost impossible to get a lot of information out there. Luckily for me, I don't have too much of an issue talking to people, getting information, reading Korean blogs and stuff like that, so I was able to gather most of the information to then go out and do pretty much everything like a normal Korean bride would be doing. So I want to be able to generally summarize everything that I looked at, the different kind of options they have in Korea, because there's kind of like different groups of things that you can look at, the general price points of everything, like what's included, and what I personally recommend to help aid you through this process. Okay, we're gonna jump right into the video, but before I do have a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is actually Songmont. Now, I'm so excited to partner with Songmont because I've actually been eyeing their bags for quite a while. They have several trendy bags that I've been seeing on social media a lot, for example, the Luna bag, and they're all such stylish and really thoughtful designs. The company was actually started in 2013, and through their bags, they really wanted to incorporate Eastern cultural aesthetics, femininity, of course, excellent craftsmanship, and they really wanted to redefine a stylish bag for work. Now, if you guys watched my 2025 wishlist video, you guys know that I have been looking for a really stylish beater bag. I told you guys that I don't have a lot of like range when it comes to my bag. I either have like pretty like mini bags. For example, I have like the Dior Small D-Joy. I have like my Chanel Mini Flap, which are definitely on the smaller side. I have really large totes. Like I have my Goyard tote, which is excellent if I'm really going on travel or I'm going on a big trip, but it's not super great for day to day. And then of course I have several Hermes bags, which the size is actually really great, but they're definitely not beater bags, and I'm very careful of where I bring them to. So you guys can see through my collection, I don't have any really good, more casual, medium-sized bags, and I definitely don't have any bags that are great for professional work. So when I was scrolling on the Songmont website to find the perfect bag for me, and I stumbled upon this one, I could not think of a more perfect bag for me. So this beautiful bag here is called the Small Gather bag in the color Ebony. I think from first glance, it can either look basically black or even a dark brown, but it really has beautiful reddish undertones, and particularly for this leather, which is Napa leather, it's dyed in a special way so that when you wear it, it's supposed to kind of gradually patina into a beautiful kind of redder, kind of darkish brown mixed shade. This leather is so smooth and feels so luxurious, and you guys know that new leather smell that you get, and this bag smells so deliciously of that. Now, the Gather design draws a lot of inspiration from camel bags that were used by nomads to travel in the deserts in East Asia, and there are so many smart design features of this bag, so let me show you each of them. So to start, I do want to show you the exterior of the bag. I love how minimalistic and simple it is. Not many bells and whistles, but you can honestly see the beautiful craftsmanship just by touching the leather. The bag does come with a long adjustable crossbody strap here. You can detach the crossbody strap if you do not want to have it on, and then you can easily adjust it with this kind of belt feature here. Additionally, it does come with a second strap, and personally, I like to use the strap a lot more for everyday use, but it can be easily kind of attached with this little hidden magnet feature here if you don't want to use it and you just want to use the crossbody strap. Or if you want to use this as your main bag strap, you can simply cinch in the leather here and it turns into a really nice size shoulder strap. If you do want to take off the crossbody strap, you can simply just slide it off. The loop here easily comes off, and you can do it on the other side as well. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of crossbody bags, so I do honestly much prefer carrying it like this. I feel like it's much more chic and it's a lot just easier for kind of like that cool casual look. Inside, the bag has plenty of space. It does have a front slip pocket here. that you can just easily slip like your phone or receipts into, something that's easily grabbable. And then if you do want a little bit more of a secure compartment, it does also have a back zip pocket as well, so you can store some more important things or things that you normally don't take out of your bag as often. Each bag also does come with a blessing plaque charm here, but definitely with a bag with this much of a minimalistic design, I think the fun comes to accessorize it and kind of style it yourself. And Songmont actually really encourages this because they have a lot of really cute charms for sale on the website as well. So I actually picked up this one. This is called their Osmanthus charm. It's a beautiful floral design with cute little leaves, and I think that this is the perfect kind of charm to kind of brighten the bag up a little bit for summer. So I'm actually going to remove this blessing charm and add on the Osmanthus. And oh my gosh, how cute is that? Definitely with the bright colors, it really kind of brightens the bag as well, and my eyes are immediately drawn to the cutest little charm. Now, before I move on to styling the bag for you guys, I do want to also mention that there's two hidden features of this bag that honestly I've never really thought of or even seen on a different bag. The first one is actually hidden. Like, it's not just like, oh, I didn't know, or oh, I didn't see it. It's actually hidden, but there's a secret little compartment in the back of the bag here that goes all the way through. And so my hand can go all the way through if it wants. And they thought that this would be so cute. You can actually use it as like a hand warmer, or you can do it to quickly slip your phone in, or anything that's like you want to be really quick access if the bag is already kind of cinched at the top. You can easily pop something in behind, and it's secured with magnets. You can hear that kind of like snap. So it's actually really secure if you do want to pop something in the back here. But honestly, with my hands inside, using this in the winter would actually be so warm. And then the last hidden feature isn't as hidden as the previous one, but it is something that I do definitely want to mention. It has to do with the strap here and the way that it's able to magnetize to the back of the bag here. This is actually built so you can easily just slide the bag down onto the handle, and you can see that there is basically the perfect amount of space for the two handle poles to slide through here. You can snap the magnet closure in place. Your bag is going to be extra secure on your suitcase, and then you could be hands-free, shoulders-free with absolutely no worries. And while I talk about what's going inside, I am going to be playing some mod shots so you guys can see how beautiful the bag looks styled. But you can see here I've kind of gathered a couple things that I like to always carry with me, and especially with wedding planning and stuff coming up, I'm definitely carrying a lot more things because I just want to make sure that I have something to jot things down if I have thoughts, or if an email comes in from my planner, I just want to be able to access it quickly. And so this, honestly, you can carry it to work, you can carry it out with friends, you can honestly do so much with this bag. But let me show you guys what I like to load it up with. So here is my iPad. This is the case that does come with the keyboard as well. I really like to have this for work, or honestly even on vacation or whatever. I love to have this with me because it's a very nice and compact way to easily do work, and it fits in so nicely into my bag. Here it is inside. It's really easy to slip in and out of the bag. And then next up, I do have a little wedding planning book. This was given to me by Graf when I purchased my ring, but here I do like to just have some notes down of what I'm thinking about for like colors or floral designs. I am definitely a person who likes to physically write things down because that helps me remember things a lot better if I'm actually writing it versus typing it. So I do really like to have this cute little book with me at all times. And then I also have the tiniest little pen that I bought from Japan. I actually like to pop the planner in the front pocket of the Songmont bag and then actually clip the pen into that pocket as well, just so it's really easy access. And the front cover of that book is like nice white leather, so I just want to keep it pristine. Next up, of course, I do like to carry smallish wallets, card holders, so I'm going to pop that in as well into the front pocket. And then these are the two electronics that I do like to just pop into a purse in case I ever need to use them. This is the Osmo Pocket 3, very compact and small camera that just slips nicely inside. And then this is actually what I'm using to carry my AirPods in. I haven't found a good case that I particularly like, and I just found that the Tiffany little jewelry little pouches are a perfect size to carry my AirPods in. So that's what I've been using. And then I do have a pretty big bag of just random stuff. Sometimes I carry this out, sometimes I don't. It depends on like how long I'm going to be out for the day, but it has like my scrunchies, hand cream, nail file, sunscreen, like band-aids, mirrors, tissues. Like I like to have literally all my bases covered whenever I leave the house. So this is kind of like my catch-all for all that stuff. And then especially with the wedding coming up, and I do have some photo shoots, like on my wedding photo shoot and stuff coming out, I'm just trying to be a little bit more mindful of like making sure I'm staying hydrated, making sure that my skin is protected with sunscreen and stuff. So I do try to take out water with me more often. I'm very bad actually about drinking water throughout the day, and so that's what I'm trying to get better at. So this is what my bag looks like filled up. There's still space to fit a lot more in. It's a little bit heavy at the moment, but but honestly, it just shows how much you can really stuff this bag. And so the last step is to just cinch her up, and then me and this cutie little bag are ready for the day. Obviously, you're going to be seeing them through the mod shots, but literally, like, this is my bag stuffed. You can hear just how much stuff is inside of it. You can see just how cute it is, and even from the side, it really does not look super bulky, even though there is so much inside. I really love that I was able to find a bag that can get me through any occasion, whether it's a night out with friends or even a working day at a cafe. Songmont honestly has done such an excellent job in combining functionality and fashion. So if you guys are interested in getting any of their lovely products, and honestly they have so many on the website, feel free to use my code SOMIDOS12 for a special offer at checkout. All the links and details will be down in the description, so make sure to go check out Songmont. Okay, now getting back into the wedding venue touring. So I honestly did not have that much time in Korea, and my time was like really split because I had a lot of things going on honestly in Korea. So I only scheduled to tour 6 venues in Korea, and that was all in the span of 1 week. So obviously, since I didn't have that much time to tour like an unlimited amount of venues, I had to be really selective of the venues that I did want to visit. And to be honest, I was only super excited for maybe like 1 or 2 of the venues. The other ones I kind of just selected to kind of see like what else Korea had to offer and kind of just make sure that I had a general understanding of all the different categories of wedding venues that Korea has to offer. And so like I was mentioning, there are actually like specific categories of venues that people have their weddings at in Korea. It's very honestly different from the way that weddings are conducted in America. And each category that I wanted to check out had a very distinct price range that you could expect for the venue, and also a very distinct amount of time that you were allotted to have your wedding. So if we go from like cheapest to most expensive, kind of like the cheapest venues that you could probably find typically are what we call like house weddings in Korea. The way that you think about a wedding in Korea is like very different than the way that you think about it in America, in my opinion. Like in America, it's this like huge gathering of friends and family, spend the entire day together. It's like this huge celebration of love and blah, blah, blah. Only your closest people that you know are coming to your wedding. A wedding in Korea is really not like that. I feel like the wedding industry in Korea is very rigid, and there's just like set schedules and expectations that are held for literally every single bride with not too much flexibility, even if you do have like more money to pour into something. And generally, I feel like it's kind of just like a checkmark box that people just check in their lives. It's not as big of a deal as it is in America, where you spend like pretty much the entire year or 2 years planning. In Korea, it's very common to just like spend a couple months kind of planning things out before you actually do the wedding. And weddings in Korea is almost like a show that you're setting for people, for your parents, for you, and you want to invite like almost every person you know possible, because people, when they attend weddings in Korea, they give money called 축의금, and so it's honestly in your best interest to have as many people attend your wedding, especially if it's like your parents' friends and people who would like give more money. So honestly, it's like kind of almost like a culture shock in my situation, because I grew up very, very, very American. Of course, I have attended traditional Korean weddings, so I understood how they worked. A very like standard wedding for the majority of Koreans happens in like 2 hours. Literally, your friends will come in the middle of the day, spend 2 hours at your wedding, maybe eat something at a buffet, and then leave. Like that is really standard. That's definitely not something that I wanted. So it was a lot of a learning process as I'm going through these venues to see like which venues allowed what. And hopefully through this experience, I'm able to share with you guys what I would personally recommend. So before going into each venue that I toured, I do want to again break down the kind of different categories of venues that you are able to have your wedding at. So starting from the least expensive to the most expensive. The least expensive weddings in Korea are typically what we call house weddings. So these weddings are actually held at buildings dedicated to just having weddings. They're almost like a shotgun Vegas wedding, but like way nicer, way more beautiful. Like the quality is way nicer, but you can think of it in that way because these buildings, like these house wedding buildings, can have up to 4 weddings a day. It's actually so crazy how the wedding industry is now like set up to be so profitable in Korea, because like, for example, these house weddings will have like 4 stories. You kind of start on one floor and then you're kind of like working your way down as you like go through the ceremony, and then you go down to eat, and then you like go down to cake cutting, and then like as you're going down, like the next bride is going up and all this stuff. So honestly, these weddings are held literally, if you're lucky, in 3 hours. Most of them fall closer to the 2-hour mark. But because of that, they're way more affordable. So I would say that like the house weddings that I was kind of looking at were closer to maybe like the $20,000 to $25,000 range. And that's all inclusive. So that includes everything of the venue. All the food is included as well, like cake and all that stuff. Florals, decorations, everything is included in that house wedding. So honestly, it's a really great price for what you're actually getting. The only huge downside is obviously the time and the rush that you're having at a wedding, because I don't think a lot of people who typically attend Western weddings would be able to understand the rush of like, I need to get out of this venue right now because the next bride is coming. But I will show you like videos and pictures of the house weddings that I did tour, because they are honestly gorgeous. If you wanted to try and replicate a house wedding in Korea, in America, the price honestly would probably be like 5 times as expensive. Now, the next wedding venue category are just hotel weddings. Now, the hotel weddings can be kind of categorized into hotel sizes and then hotel prices within the hotel category. We can generally think that most Koreans will either have a house wedding or they will have a hotel wedding. So because the wedding industry is so like lucrative now in Korea, hotels have specific wedding halls purposely designed just to host weddings in them. Like if you try to have a hotel at a wedding in America, usually it's just like in one of their convention halls or something. They decorate it really nicely. But Korea, it's like this hall is the wedding hall, and they have like beautiful light decorations that are permanent fixtures and all that stuff. You can't have like a different event in there really. So for the hotel weddings, they're kind of like the smaller, lower tiered hotels that are still very nice hotels, but these are typically if you want to have like a little bit of a smaller wedding, like the room that they host the wedding in is a little smaller. It's like a little bit more plain. So there's kind of like lower tier pricing. Then there's like the mid-tier pricing, which are like the slightly nicer hotels. They kind of like have nicer food, include nicer things. And then there are the top level hotels. Now these are what I consider like a lot of celebrities get married at, and these are very, very expensive. And with that price point, you're also getting like a lot more things, and I'll explain all of that in a bit. Now, before I do jump into the specific venues that I toured, I did want to just generally give you guys a slight reasoning as to why we even considered having our wedding in Korea. And honestly, it was kind of just because it was like a why not situation. Like number one, I have attended several weddings in America now. I've been maid of honor 3 times for my best friends. Finally, my time is coming. But generally, I just saw how much work goes into planning a wedding, how stressful it can be, because weddings in America, you have to just like pull together so many different vendors, so many different people. And of course you can have a planner, but planners in America are very expensive. And even with like everything planned down to the T, because so many different vendors and so many different people have to be involved, even if you're paying for a top-notch wedding, there's always the possibility that one component of the wedding goes wrong. Like on TikTok, I have seen an unlimited amount of stories that are like, the vendor didn't show up with enough food, the florist messed up, like all this stuff. It was just like, I don't want to pay so much money, because especially in the Bay Area, oh my God, our wedding's so expensive. I don't want to pay that much money for even the slight possibility of something being able to go wrong. Now in Korea, it's just so much easier because these wedding kind of venues and these wedding packages that are sold to people, they are all inclusive. The venue does everything. So there is really like no chance that something goes wrong, because it's like all included. Like the restaurant in the hotel is going to do your catering. Like there's no way that something can go wrong because they're literally making the food there, right? And because the wedding industry is so centralized, like all the people that they work with, they've worked with like a million times. It's not like, oh, I brought this random flower vendor here and I'm going to tell them to go to this random venue over there. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. It's like, no, this wedding venue only works with these amount of people. And of course, some people might like that. Some people might not like that. Some people want to be more involved. Some people like that it's just like super easy. Personally, on my end, I really like how easy it is and how little thought that I need to put into having this wedding, because Matthew and I are already really busy as is. So we just wanted like the lowest stress wedding possible. And we did really feel like we could find that in Korea. And then secondly, we just generally feel like the service provided in Korea is on kind of like a higher quality than the service you might get in America. This could be biased, this could just be our personal experience, but that's just kind of what we felt. And then we also thought that our money would go further in Korea. So for example, if we budgeted a certain amount of money to have a wedding in America, we could take that same budget, go over to Korea and have a nicer wedding, which is generally true because the cost of living in Korea is much lower. And then lastly, there are some really important family members who do live in Korea for me who would probably be unable to travel to America for my wedding just because of their health issues and because of their age. Like for example, my grandparents did help raise me when I was very young. So it's really important to me that they are able to attend such a special moment in my life. And I want to make it as easy easy as possible for them to attend, which the easiest way would be for me to just have my wedding in Korea. And outside my immediate family members who moved to America, all the rest of my family still lives in Korea, and so it just kind of made a little bit of sense that way. And then generally as well, a lot of my friends were excited at the prospect of me having an international wedding, having it in Korea, because all of us wanted to make a really big trip out of this. So I feel like the sentiment is that when I go to travel for an American wedding, for example, I went to my cousin's wedding in Virginia. I flew over there, I booked hotels, but I literally only saw her for, I want to say like 30, of course I saw her for the entire wedding, but I probably talked to her for only 10 minutes of that entire wedding. And then she was really busy before, she was really busy after. And so I just felt like we spent a bunch of money to go and visit her, which I want to do and I want to support her, but I was really sad that I didn't get to spend more time with her and make it a little bit more meaningful. And it could have been like the wedding was a lot bigger and stuff like that because it was local, but for an international wedding, we're a lot more selective about who gets to get invited. We're a lot more close with the people who are coming. And so the way that we've planned it, because we've already booked the venue, we are going to have it be like an entire, weekend situation. We're going to have activities planned before the wedding, after the wedding, and they're all going to involve our family and friends. So we're going to be able to have a much more meaningful experience having it internationally, I think, because if someone is committed enough and loves you enough to be able to travel that far, then you're going to be able to spend a lot more time with them because it's going to be an actual trip dedicated to you. So that's kind of the way that we thought about it and that we approached it. And then as we were looking at venues, we did fall in love with one particular venue. I don't know if I'm going to reveal it in this video actually, but I would love to know down in the comments after you see this which venue you think I picked, because I think it should be kind of obvious, but we'll have to see. Okay, going into the actual venues that we toured. So like I said, we only toured 6 venues and it was kind of split up into like a 2-2-2 situation. So 2 of them were house weddings, 2 of them were kind of like the lower tier hotels, and then 2 of them were kind of like the nicer middle-ish / really top tier hotels. So starting with the house weddings, so we'll go from like least expensive to most expensive. I wish I did a little bit more research on touring a couple different venues, because after getting back from Korea, I did see a couple more house venues that would have been nice to tour for like the sake of you guys, if you guys were interested. Personally, I don't think I would ever do a house wedding just because of the time constraints, but I think there are plenty of places that are also just so beautifully decorated that I would have loved to just kind of see with my own eyes. But for the house weddings, we actually visited 2 under the same company. So the company is called Villa DG, and this company actually has multiple like buildings in various parts of the city, and so they're all decorated very differently, and they actually all have slightly different price points and slightly different kind of things that they include with the package. So the nicest, I think, of the Villa de DG kind of branch is in a place called Cheongdam. Cheongdam is a really kind of luxury place of Korea. It has like all the flagship stores of luxury houses like Cartier, Dior, Van Cleef, and all that stuff, and that area in general is known to be very wealthy. So Villa DG Cheongdam is supposed to be, I think, the nicest one. It is the most expensive of the quotes that we got of the house weddings. So whenever you go and visit, you basically get a tour of the venue. They kind of explain what's included, and then they also give you actual quotes. So it's really nice because you know exactly what you're paying for. You can add things on additionally as you kind of get closer to your wedding date. Like let's say I want to add more florals, and your quote's going to get a little bit more expensive. But generally, this is going to be the minimum amount of money that you're expected to pay, and it is all inclusive. So the minimum, like you do not have to pay more than the minimum and you will get a full wedding. So that's really nice, because I think in America, it's really easy to kind of get like costs hidden here and there, and maybe deadlines. You got so many different deadlines for all the different venues. It gets a little bit confusing. This kind of thing, it's like you just pay the deposit and then you're good until you have to pay like the rest essentially. And then it tells you everything that's included. So just for an example here in the Villa DG Cheongdam, so you can see that they have 3 wedding times available. They have 11:30 a.m. available, they have 3 o'clock available, and then they have 6:30 available. So they have 3 weddings a day. So you can see it's like kind of a packed schedule. Then they tell you how much it costs to rent the venue. They tell you how much the flowers are going to cost. They tell you how much, like sometimes the venues will require you to use their on-site photographer. So they'll have information about how much the wedding photos will cost. They tell you how much the food is going to cost per person. And then they give you like the menu as well. You can kind of see examples of the menu here. Usually they have kind of like a standard menu. You can also get like a slightly nicer menu, just depending on, you know, how much money you want to spend per person on food. You also typically have to purchase like wine for every table. You can also have extra things, like they'll have the prices for if you want to add like a name tag per person, if you want to have like flowers flowers raining down from the sky once you like kiss at the end of the ceremony. So I think with the current exchange rate, this would have been close to $30,000 all inclusive. And I do want to mention there is one particularly annoying thing about Korean weddings, and it's especially prevalent at several hotels and also house weddings, is the fact that the minimum guest count at a lot of these places is quite high. Like I was saying at the beginning, a lot of Koreans want to invite as many people as possible because it's honestly lucrative for you because you can get more money if more people are invited. So a lot of the minimum counts at these really big hotels or at these house weddings can be anywhere from 200 to 300 people minimum. And so obviously for us having an international wedding and having a lot of people fly from overseas, and for us wanting to have an intimate wedding, like it's really hard for us to meet these minimum requirements. So what that kind of means for a lot of these places that you have to still pay for 200 guests example, like it's basically food costs, like 200 guests, like you have to pay for 200 guests worth of food, and you kind of just like send, you know, it's like free money for the venue essentially. Sometimes if the venue is nice, you can be like, okay, well, I'm only gonna have 120 people at my wedding. Instead of making like 80 people's worth of food that nobody is going to eat, can we kind of turn that money into like gifting everybody red wine at the end of the night or something like that? Some places have a little bit more flexibility. So for example, Villa DG Cheongdam were nice enough to say that they could take, instead of making all that food, they would give us something at the end for guests to take home. But for example, at other places, they're like, too bad, so sad. You either meet the minimum requirement, you either pay the minimum and nobody comes and we just kind of waste that food, or you don't have your wedding here with us. In the case of me and Matthew, we only want to have like 100 to 120 guests at our wedding because again, we want to have it pretty intimate. And so for us, I mean, let's say we did choose this venue, it's okay to eat the cost of like paying for an additional 80 people's worth of food, because like a $30,000 all-inclusive wedding is a steal of a price. So honestly, if we did want to go with that option, we would be totally okay because the cost in itself is not that expensive. So that's just to give you an idea of like what kind of like a house wedding looks like. So I'll include videos and photos as well. Villa DG Cheongdam was honestly so beautiful. It has like kind of like almost a Harry Potter-ish vibe, I want to say. I mean, they had these beautiful chandeliers and they had this beautiful kind of like entryway at the altar area where the doors would open and stuff like that. They had a beautiful taegishir. So something that's really common in Korean weddings as well is that before the wedding actually starts, the bride waits in a waiting room called like the bride's waiting room. And before the wedding actually starts, friends and family can go over and take pictures with the bride before the wedding actually starts to kind of like get that out of the way. Some people might not like that in America because sometimes like the dress is supposed to be a surprise and all that stuff. Personally, for me, I don't know if I will also do that either. I might want to wait to kind of like reveal myself when the actual ceremony starts. So I'm still thinking about that, but the waiting room is always something that's included in all these wedding prices cost. So it's kind of like a separate room that's also decorated with flowers, and it's like a cute little photo opportunity. I will say the staff here at the Cheongdam location were very, very, very friendly. The service was definitely really nice as well. Like when you go in, they served us like little snacks and drinks and stuff like that. Very accommodating. Again, for example, the guest count thing, they were trying to work with us to find a solution that would like be a compromise between the two. The only thing that I kind of didn't like about it is, number one, obviously the time. Like having 3 weddings a day just to me is not that acceptable. I just don't want to be rushed on a special day like that. And then number 2, it's like the kind of setup for how the wedding hall was actually arranged. So in Korea, it's very common for the bride to just walk down a stage. Like it is basically just like the guests are almost irrelevant at a wedding. It's like everything's all about the bride and groom, and you know, so the stage is set up beautifully and all that stuff. But I didn't like how it was like the walkway and then it was like the chairs like right alongside the walkway, which again, it's really common in Korea. But personally for me, I think that circular tables kind of like positioned around the aisle would be better than just like one long straight table, because I don't like how like the people facing or the people closest to the aisle are facing the other direction. So they'd have to like turn around their chair like this to look, or kind of like reposition the chair essentially. And I feel like that would have just looked really awkward. And the space itself felt like a little bit cramped based on like how many chairs they were trying to fit in there, because again, it's supposed to fit 200 people, but like the hall wasn't like incredibly large for 200 people. But anyways, I think if you're looking for a very nicely beautiful decorated wedding hall, like this is definitely a top choice. Again, the price point for an all-inclusive wedding is not bad at all, so this is definitely a great choice for somebody who wants to be a little bit more budget friendly. Next up, we have the cheapest venue that I saw. So this is again the same house wedding branch as Villa de DG, but this is in a area of Seoul called Suseo. So this is another branch of them. The major reason why Suseo is cheaper than Cheongdam is based on location, actually, I think. So the Cheongdam location, again, like I said, it's a very expensive place to have a building. And then it's also right next to the subway line. So that's a really attractive feature for a lot of Koreans because most people get to the wedding venue via public transportation. So the building in Cheongdam being right outside the subway line is like a great plus factor to a lot of Koreans. So Suseo is cheaper because the building is in like a little bit more of a remote area of Seoul. So to get to the actual building, you have to take like a bus from the subway line or something like that. So it's a little bit like less desirable in that fact. But honestly, I really liked the area that the Suseo building was in versus the Cheongdam because it's way more serene and quiet. It's like right next to this really big park, and then when we went it was like beautiful weather, really sunny outside, so I really like that because in comparison to the Cheongdam location, it's like in an actual city, so there's just a bunch of buildings, like it's just like a concrete jungle everywhere, so it's like a lot less pretty on the outside. Okay, but let's talk about the specifics of Suseo because honestly the only thing that they share in common is the name, like Villa de DG, because everything else is completely different. The food they serve is different, the location is different, the building decoration and the style of decoration is different, so everything is different. Generally, because Suseo is cheaper, the food is not going to be as like high quality, but I honestly like liked this better than Cheongdam. Here is like the little kind of information stuff. They give you the same information for pricing, like how much food is going to be, how much the actual rental for the venue, and all the other stuff that you can add on is going to be shown directly, so that's really nice. Also, a major difference between the Suseo location and the Cheongdam location is Cheongdam food, like the whatever lunch or dinner that you get served, is a course menu, so everyone is sitting at the table, food is served to you, versus at Suseo it is a buffet style, so that's why it's also significantly cheaper. Villa DG also has 4 available times for the wedding, so you can either have it at 11 o'clock a.m., you can have it at 1:30, you can have it at 4, or you can have it at 6:30. So this is even tighter of a time, so again, driving the cost down. And I think all in all, for everything included for this particular venue, it would have been a lot closer to $20,000 all included. So again, if you're a bride on a budget, this is like an excellent idea for you guys. And honestly, to the average Korean, because Koreans make on average way less than the amount of money that is getting made by the average person in the Bay Area or even the average person in America, these wedding costs, although they seem very cheap to me, I'm sure they're not as cheap to the average Korean. But again, if you're taking American USD and then transferring it over to Korea, the dollar goes a long way at this moment. So if you are a Korean American and you're interested in getting married in Korea for a lot cheaper of a price than you could in America, definitely Villa DG I do recommend. The only really negative thing about this place was Matthew absolutely hated the service that was provided to us. So basically what happens is when you go in, again, like I said, they'll like give you drinks and snacks and stuff like that, and then a person will actually physically take you through a tour of the venue. The lady who was taking us on the tour was pretty standoffish and rude, to be honest. I don't know if it was because she had known that we actually had visited the Cheongdam location before coming to this location, and she kind of was like, oh, well, like if you liked the Cheongdam location, you're probably not going to pick us, so we're not going to give any kind of like effort or anything like that. But as soon as the woman started giving Matthew some attitude, Matthew was like, let's just leave like right now. So it was a very short-lived tour, to be honest, because Matthew was like, let's get the heck out of here. I'm definitely not having my wedding here. And again, house weddings are not something that we kind of like learned it's not something that we would ever consider because of the timing of like having 3 to 4 weddings a day was just not for us, and we did not want to be rushed. So we pretty quickly immediately wrote off like the house weddings. But again, the venues themselves were so beautiful, and specifically like the Suseo location, they had the ceremony and then like the cake cutting slash kind of like the eating area separate on like different floors, whereas at the Cheongdam location the cake cutting and the ceremony is happening on the same floor. So what I really liked about the different floor is that it gave like 2 very different vibes at Suseo. So like the ceremony was like super whimsical. I mean, it had this beautiful like curving archway, and it was actually like people sat to look at you instead of like having kind of dining tables scattered around. So I really liked that setup. And then when you went downstairs, after people are done eating, you go like at the end, you do like a cake cutting ceremony, and the back doors actually opened into like the park that was right outside, and it was like so gorgeous, so beautiful. I really liked the aesthetic of the Suseo location, honestly, more than I liked the Cheongdam one, and props because it's obviously cheaper and more affordable. So again, those are just like my thoughts. If you guys are interested in house weddings, I would do a lot more research because outside of Villa DGG, it is a really popular house wedding location that a lot of Koreans like to get married at, but there are several other ones that I found later down the line that are equally as pretty, I think equally as affordable. So I would just kind of like try to spread, you know, feelers out into the wild to kind of get a broader sense of what's out there, because just sticking to one brand was probably not as informative as it could have been. Okay, moving on to kind of like the mid-tier hotel pricing. So there were two kind of mid-tier hotels that we visited. The first one was the Grand Hyatt in Seoul. So this is the first one, and then the second one we visited was the Josun Westin Hotel. These two hotels have been around for a very long time, very well known, very popular, and so we wanted to visit them on the recommendation of our planner, and our planner actually recommended these two locations because they had specific rooms that could accommodate what we call small weddings. Like in America, 100 to 120, I guess it's like a little bit on the smaller side, but I feel like that's pretty average right now. But in Korean standards, it's very, very small, and so they're called like small weddings. So you have to look for hotels that actually allow you to have a venue that holds only like 100 people, for example. So honestly, finding a venue that even allows you to have like less than 120 people or around 120 people is very, very difficult. So these two hotels are actually hotels that do allow you to do that in one of their smaller rooms. So we'll get into that in just a second. So the Grand Hyatt was actually the very first venue we toured. They have a very pretty little folder that you get. But again, it's pretty similar to everything else. They did provide some more like high-end information. So you saw from like the Villa de DG, they just gave us like a little like one slit piece of paper, and that was about it. Here they're giving us a lot more information. So we obviously get the same kind of pricing sheet that all the other venues gave us. They also gave something really helpful that is like maps of the actual place that will be held. So it gives you a map and information about even how to get to the venue that you could share with your guests. And it also shows exactly the different venues and kind of where they're placed within the hotel itself. And then they are also giving you, I mean, later you do tastings and stuff like that, but it is nice that they gave us a bunch of different like wedding menu options with photos. So we could kind of think about it before we actually made our decision, because it is important what food your guests are going to eat. So the hotel itself is really beautiful. Like you step in, it's this beautiful lobby. They've got like a kind of like a terrace area that's like indoors, but with like the cafe and food and stuff. I honestly really liked the aesthetic of the hotel. The wedding consultation area was really lovely. The person that we were speaking to was really lovely. They walked us through everything. They gave us like, they have like slideshows prepared usually that kind of show you different decoration styles, floral styles, all that stuff. And they also have a bunch of like wedding options that you can add on. So that includes things like, do you want to have a photo wall before people come in? Do you want to have like welcome drinks? Do you want to have like rice cakes to give out at the end? Do you want to add like chanjuksu, which is like a special kind of wedding noodle to add to the menu? Do you want to have name cards placed for everybody? So there's a bunch of stuff that you can also add, but they don't include any of that like in their final kind of quote for you. So the final quote came out to be close to $30,000 if you do the conversion rate. So again, it's pretty nice because again, it's all inclusive and you know exactly what's going into the money that you're paying for. There's no any extra costs that can be added on without you knowing it. The only thing, which is kind of like a big thing that we really didn't like about this particular venue, is it was like so mid, which I think is like a huge problem since the venue is the most important part almost at this point. So it was basically just like a small convention hall that they would have like turned into a like wedding. So I'll show you photos of what it would look like set up. But essentially when we went to go actually look at the space itself, there was like a different like academic convention going on, and you could clearly tell, like if you went to any hotel in America, you could go to like a Marriott or something. If you went to a Marriott in America and you looked at their convention hall where it's like kind of bad carpet and it's just like maybe like a window or two, like that is literally what the hall looked like. And they obviously would have spent a lot of time decorating it and setting it up and all that stuff, but To pay $30,000 for that like tiny little convention hall really wasn't worth it. And it wasn't like the money was the issue. The issue was that I could literally go and have that in America as well. Maybe it'd be, I don't know, more expensive probably, but there's no reason for all my lovely guests and friends to fly from America to Korea to attend a small convention hall, like literally a small little conference room. Like I was like, that is so not worth it to the people coming and flying for my wedding. And I think it's a little bit of a bad mentality too, especially when it comes to international weddings, because I think a lot of brides fall into a mentality where it's like, oh, it's like I need to create like an experience so people find that it's worth it to come to my wedding. And I'm very much of a people pleaser, so I think it's really easy for me to fall into that mentality as well. So I don't want to like make my entire wedding about the guests that are coming instead of it being about me. But at the same time, I want it to be like a balance, right? I want myself to be happy. I want myself to be the focus of attention. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that my guests are having a good time and they're finding that it was like a great experience for them to come and experience it in Korea. So personally for me, I really did not feel like the Grand Hyatt in Seoul would have given like a wow, this is amazing kind of experience for any of my guests or for me for that matter. So we pretty quickly wrote this one off as well. And then the second like mid-tier hotel that we visited was called the Westin Josun, and this is also a very popular place to get married because they have like a view of like a traditional Korean like architectural structure from the wedding venue. I think because of that like kind of cute historical view that you kind of see, honestly it's like not even that impressive. I'll pop a picture on, but I think because of that it is still a very popular place to get married. The actual like big hall for the bigger weddings is very pretty inside this particular hotel, but personally for me, the smaller wedding hall for the smaller weddings was, again, it was like the exact same, I would say, as the Grand Hyatt, where nothing impressive. The price point was basically the same as well. There was like no differences. And so honestly, both of those venues I was kind of like not impressed by at all. Again, pretty quickly wrote off those venues too, I think. Again, my planner just recommended them because they are some of the few hotels that even offer a smaller room for you to have a smaller wedding in. Okay, and now we're left with kind of like the upper tier hotels. So I visited two. I'll start with the cheaper of the two. So this one is called Banyan Tree. This is a place that I used to party at when I was like younger. I would say in college, I would sometimes go in the summer times. They have like these, it's kind of like a almost like a country club kind of vibe. So I think you can play golf there. They have like spas and pools and stuff. So in the summertime, they would host like poolside kind of like clubbing activities. And so that was very fun when I was younger. I don't know if I'd still do it now, but honestly, maybe like that would be a fun activity to have as like an after party. But I really honestly liked this venue. The venue itself is very modern, classical Korean. So Korean people love having like a dark wedding. I don't know what it is. I think it's because they like shine a spotlight down on the bride and the groom, and it's like, again, it's all about the bride and the groom. I think that's why they like it, because 100% of the focus has to be on where the spotlight is. If everything else in the room is like dark, they have these like beautiful chandeliers glistening in the light. So it's a really popular like type of venue to have your wedding at. Personally for me, I was like, I understand the appeal of it, but I had never ever imagined in my mind to have like no natural light, no windows, no nothing like that. So I was a little bit thrown off guard, but Matthew actually really liked the venue because he's more kind of into like the black and the dark aesthetic, and I don't know. So we definitely had a good time viewing it. The people were also very nice and very accommodating. So again, they gave us a bunch of papers to look at. Here they have the menu. It seems like they only have one set menu. I don't think you can actually choose, but it is about $170. Most of the menus, I have to say, for Korean weddings is leaning like fusion. It's like kind of like a mix between Western and Korean, so that's totally fine with us. Here is the wedding quote. And this particular wedding venue was super accommodating for a couple of things that we needed. So for example, like our smaller wedding size. So typically a lot of venues are like pretty set on the, you know, minimum count of people that you need to do, but Banyan Tree in specific was like, okay, if you have a Sunday wedding and it's the last time for the Sunday wedding, we can accommodate a much smaller amount of people, because the pricing for different days actually varies. So Saturdays are like the most popular, they'll be the most expensive, and all times on Saturday will usually be priced the same. Sunday weddings will be cheaper than Saturday weddings, and especially the last time, because I think there's a little bit more flexibility in like the timing because this is going to be the last wedding. And I also think having like the last time on Sunday is not as desirable as having an earlier Sunday time because a lot of people have to go to work on Monday. So there's like a lot of kind of things about thinking about how people kind of structure their lives in Korea that matter. So the last time on Sunday would have definitely been the cheapest for us because they would have let us lower the minimum count from, I think, like 150 people or 165 people down to 100 people. So that would have been like so key in saving. So Banyan Tree, we're definitely seeing a significant jump in price. So it would have been a little over $40,000 for everything inclusive at Banyan Tree. That's not adding anything, right? Like that would be just like the basic floral package and all that stuff. So there is a definite jump from like Banyan Tree to the other hotels that we saw. So Banyan Tree was definitely a really solid choice for us. There were a ton of things that I really liked about it. And because of the price point too, we would have been able to add on a ton of more things. Like we could have had a more expensive menu. We could have also added a ton more florals and all this other stuff. There were some major good things about it. Like, of course, the space was absolutely beautiful. And I really liked Banyan Tree Hotel itself because there were a lot of activities that you could have done. Like, I think our guests could have played golf. They could have, you know, hung out at the spa. It's really known for their spa and everything. So there were a lot of like good things about it. Another great thing about the venue was that they could have hosted our after party for us. So again, for the Korean wedding, the way that it's set up is that it's like the ceremony and then it's food and then it's like cake cutting and like that's it. There's no dancing section. There's no after party. Like that's why they're so short because there's no like fun activities afterwards. For us, of course, we want to have more time with our guests. So we definitely wanted to have what we're calling an after party, where we want to have like dancing and drinks and all that stuff. So we were trying to figure out like, okay, what's the best situation? It would be great if our venue could have hosted it for us, but a lot of venues, because Korean people don't do that, they don't offer that option. And then we could have also completely rent out a bar or a club or something. That's what we're also thinking about. But like I said, I used to party at Banyan Tree in the summers, so I knew that they had the capacity to host some kind of like party setting. So when I inquired about it, they were like, yes, we can like reserve this time. You just have to hit like a minimum drink count or something like that per person. And we're like, okay, that's a really great option because that would save us a lot of hassle of like trying to transport our guests somewhere else and all that stuff. I would say the only negative about this place, honestly, there were like none. The only negatives were that number one, they just have to take a shuttle from the public transportation. I think most of our guests would just like Uber or take a taxi or anything, but if you did want to take public transportation, the hotel offers a shuttle service in between the closest subway station and the hotel. So not a huge deal. Like honestly, I don't even know if that's a minus because they do have a free shuttle service. And then number two, the hotel itself is actually quite small. So there's no guarantee that all the guests would be able to stay in the hotel. And it's kind of like a pricier hotel. So I don't even know if the guests would want to stay there. But if they did, and it would be sad if like there was enough space for all the guests who wanted to stay there. But that's just another thing to consider. Overall though, Matthew really liked the venue. I generally like the venue. Again, very iffy about the whole like darkness wedding venue, but I can definitely see how it's really modern and really elegant. And then lastly, the last venue that was toured is called Signiel. They have a motto, which is a wedding in heaven. And this is a very special place to us because this is in the Lotte World Tower. So where I got engaged was at the Lotte World Tower. I always visit, like we always stay there at least for a little bit during our hotel stays in Korea. And it's just, it's a massive tower. And typically if you're staying in a hotel, you stay on like the 100th floor, somewhere around there. So it's beautiful. It has like panoramic views of the city and they also can host weddings. And so there are, I would say, some major hotels that celebrities and like really, if you want a really nice wedding, like this is where you get married at. I think, in my opinion, the top two are here, Signiel, and then the second place, which is probably the most popular place, is called the Shilla Hotel in Korea. And there's a specific venue within Shilla called Yeongbingwan, and it's because it's like semi-outdoor. You do the ceremony outdoors, and then typically you can kind of like go into like a indoor seating area when you do the food and everything, but it's like a beautiful, like traditional kind of Korean architectural style, and it's been there for a very, very, very long time. So the way that I would kind of like think about the two venues is like Shilla is like very almost like old money, kind of like traditional wedding. Like people have always held Shilla in such high regard for a long time. And then of course, Lotte Tower has been built relatively recently, and Signiel is way more modern, crisp, natural lighting. Like, so they're two very, very different vibes. Shida, I would have toured, but the minimum count for Yeongbingwan was 300 people, and there was no way we were gonna hit 300 people like in any capacity. And like, I don't even know if I wanted like a traditional Korean architecture in the background. Like, that honestly has very little meaning to me. Maybe it has different meanings to people who grew up and spent their entire lives in Korea, but for me, I was like, not for me. So Signiel was super, super, super appealing because they have a minimum count of 100. Like, their one wedding area, the minimum is 100, and the maximum I think is like 150 to 200. So the space itself is designed to hold less people, which is really attractive because it's a lot different from having a space that's designed to hold less people than trying to have less people in a space that's designed for a lot more people, because then the space ends up looking a little empty. So when we're looking at pictures and everything, it looked really good with like 120 people sitting in there. So that was super attractive to us. And of course, everything about this particular venue and the service was incredible. Like, there is also a certain aspect because I was using a planner, and my planner has a lot of really good connections with these top level hotels. So my planner in particular does a ton of weddings at Signiel, so she's really close with the person who was doing our tour venue and everything. So I think we also received a lot better treatment because we knew our planner, because I had read on some neighbor blogs that the service sometimes is actually really standoffish and rude. And I can definitely see that because Korean people can inherently be super, super judgmental based on how you look, based on how much money they think you have and everything. So I think it definitely helps when like my planner knows the person, and then obviously we're dressing up a little bit nicely to go here and all this other stuff. So we could have had a different experience, but I'm very glad that we had a very good experience because the lady who was doing our tour, so lovely. Refreshments and everything were so lovely. They took so much time to explain every detail super carefully. And the really nice thing is that a wedding was going on while I was touring, so I got to actually view the setup of what the space would look like for this particular design that this bride chose. And it was actually like breathtaking. I would have to say all the other venues that I saw were just like, I mean, some of them were very pretty and I was like, oh my god, this is beautiful, and I could definitely like envision myself. But when I saw Signiel's setup, and I'll show you the pictures, I was actually like shooketh. So obviously it had like panoramic views of the city when you kind of first enter the venue, and they didn't allow pictures, unfortunately. I only had those small pictures to show you guys. I'll try to look online for some other pictures, but they kind of have like the reception area where when you first go in, they offer you welcome champagne. You can have like a little photo wall set up or like the mirror set up. You can either have the bride waiting room actually out in the open, so as soon as people walk in, they can like straight up see you on the left side, or you can have the more traditional kind of like separate waiting room for the bride, which was again very pretty, very spacious. And the actual wedding hall itself was just like gorgeous. I mean, the way that they decorate it is obviously what makes it so gorgeous, because I think in itself it's honestly just like a room with windows on the side, but the way that they do all the flower hanging, the way that they do the chandeliers, the lighting, the table setting and everything was just so incredible. So here again, we get our little sheet here, and then they also gave us two menus that you can choose from. So one of them is a Western style menu, and then the other is actually a Chinese style menu, which actually thought was super interesting because I was like, why would Korean people want to eat a Chinese style menu? But maybe it's like popular. Personally for us, we definitely wanted kind of like a Western fusion with Korean, so we definitely liked the Western style menu. The other really standout thing about the wedding at Signiel in particular is that they have two Michelin star restaurants that work inside Signiel. So they have one that's like a traditional Korean restaurant, and then they have one that's like a French fusion style restaurant. The French inspired restaurant called Stay inside Signiel is the restaurant that would be doing our wedding menu. So they obviously are Michelin chefs, so everybody who attends the wedding would get a Michelin meal. It's obviously way more expensive than the other meals that we saw at different wedding venues, but I think that is a really special touch to have at your wedding, to provide people with a Michelin star experience at your wedding, especially in Korea, where it'll be the first time a lot of my friends are visiting Korea, to have that really special meal. And I've dined at Stay many times now, and I absolutely love their food, so it'd be very special if I could share that experience with all of my loved ones. But again, everything about Signiel is way more expensive. So this would be the quote for like 100 people, and the 100 people would only be allowed on a Sunday. So we would have to pick a Sunday wedding if we wanted to have it at Signiel. Otherwise, I think if you wanted to have a Saturday wedding, the minimum was 150, I want to say. So then the price would again shoot up based on how many people there were. If you wanted like the hanging flowers, that would have been like an additional $20,000. If you wanted a photo booth wall, like at the welcome area, that would have been an additional like $5,000. Like all this stuff. If you want to add things for the guests to take home, if you want blah, blah, blah. Like, there's like way more stuff added here. So for Signiel, we would have budgeted $100,000 for this wedding, probably. And that's not necessarily including things that are additional like hotels and flights and all that stuff for family and friends. So that is kind of what we're looking at. So of course, there's a huge jump from the really, really top tier hotels to the mid-tier hotels, and of course, even the house weddings. So there was a ton of things for us to think about while we were kind of debriefing and reviewing everything that we looked at. I definitely have to say the pros of Signiel were like infinite. I mean, the decoration is beautiful, the food would be delicious, everything would just be top tier. They could also host your after party on the same floor as well. They showed me a separate space where they were like, okay, we can set up the DJ, have open bar and everything. So that was really convenient. I think the nighttime view would have been so spectacular as well, again, because it's panoramic. They also only do, this is the only venue that we visited that does this, but it's only one wedding a day. So you can choose any time you want, and it's way more flexible in terms of kind of like when people get there, when people leave. Obviously, you can't like take advantage of that, but it's a lot less rushed than the other places because it's literally just you that day. Banyan Tree only had 2 weddings a day, so it's also pretty nice. I forgot to mention that, but definitely the 1 wedding a day thing, I just feel like cannot be beat. I would say if there's any cons, there's really none. I think the biggest con is that it's the most pricey. Like, definitely Signiel is so beautiful, but the base price is really expensive, and the base actually doesn't include all the things that I would want it to. Like, I know for sure that I will be spending a lot more than the base price that they initially quoted. So for example, like the base floral package is actually like a little bit more sparse in comparison to other places that I had visited. So I would definitely be adding at least like an additional $20,000 in florals, I think. And so like the hanging florals, centerpieces for the tables and all that stuff. So it's like, I think Signiel, it's really easy to rack up way more money because it would also be extra to like decorate the lobby space a little bit more and stuff like that. So I think Signiel can quickly become more of a slippery slope to adding more costs compared to the other venues. Some other really great pros too that were offered by both Banyan Tree and Signiel, more so Signiel, is that they offer things like they offer a night at the honeymoon suite, so that's like a really expensive room. They offer a night there free of charge, which is kind of nice. And then they also offer like Rolls-Royce service pickup. So like if you need to go to the airport, if you need to go in between like the makeup shop and the hotel, they'll send like a Rolls-Royce to pick you up and stuff like that. So there are like small perks as well that they'll add. But honestly, in the grand scheme of how much things cost, they're not going to make that much of a difference in the amount of money that you're spending. So we did not make a decision immediately at any place. We didn't even make a decision while we were in Korea. We're like, okay, let's take like a month-ish to think about, and then we'll make a decision after carefully considering everything, going through the budget, talking with our parents and everything. But I'm happy to say, at least at this point, everything is smooth sailing. We have put a deposit down on the venue that we have selected. I'm just so excited. Love to know down in the comments what you think I chose. But anyways, I did want to give some pointers and recommendations if you are planning to look around or tour any of these venues, because there were a lot of things that I learned that I did not know about going into actually touring the venues. So number one, I do really recommend getting a planner just because it's way easier, and honestly planning fees in Korea are way cheaper than planning fees in America. So to give you a reference, like one of my friends is planning a wedding here in America, and she got quotes from anywhere from like $10,000 all the way up to $40,000 for a wedding planner, and I was like, oh my god, that is incredible. In Korea, they usually just take a percentage fee of like whatever your cost comes out to be, but it's cost of the wedding that does not include the venue. So it's a little bit confusing in this way because there's a couple of things that happen like before you actually get married at your venue. So for example, December, Matthew and I are going back to Korea. I have to pick out my dress. I have to, pay for makeup and hair. I'm getting a wedding photo shoot there. That's like all day. Matthew has to get his suit. Our parents get like hanboks and stuff like that. There's a bunch of other of these costs leading up to the wedding, like booking the photographer for the wedding, booking the videographer for the wedding, booking the wedding shoot, booking hair, makeup, transportation, like all this other stuff are like things that the planner helps like book and recommend and all that stuff. So outside of the wedding venue fee, she doesn't take any percentage of the wedding venue fee, but she takes a percentage of all the other fees that like are accumulated. So however much the dresses cost, however much the photo shoot costs and all this stuff. So it kind of seems like she could take a lot, but she only took for us because we had somebody recommend her to us. I think she's only taking a 4% fee for us. So honestly, I feel like the cost will not be that bad. So for us to have the convenience of her like literally handling everything for us, like I just tell her like I want this and this and this, and then she handles it for me, like that is so worth it in my opinion. So for me, I use the wedding planner. Her business is called Claire the Wedding, and I'm working with the CEO. You can find her on Instagram. She's super nice, super well connected. I do think that there is also like a situation where she only takes a small fee from us because I think she also gets commission from the places that she recommends. So for example, if she recommends a photo studio that she has connections with and I end up choosing them, I think like I pay her a little fee, and then I think also the photo studio pays her a little fee for recommending her. So I would also take that with a grain of salt because I would do research on the places that are recommended to buy a planner in case there's like something about like, oh, she's only recommending it because she gets a fee. But I did my research on, or I did a little bit of research, and I actually ended up really liking all the places. Generally, I was like, also, I didn't have super strong opinions, so as long as it was really pretty and looked nice, I didn't really care about anything else. So I did end up going for like pretty expensive photo shoots, and like the dress shop that I'm going to is a place also frequented by celebrities and stuff. I obviously didn't need to do that because there are plenty of other photo shoots and dress shops that are much more affordable and they provide very similar levels of service probably. But for me, I feel like I'm just paying for kind of convenience, and I know that everything there is going to be kind of like top tier and everything. So once I go back in December, I'll try to vlog all that and share with you guys because I think that'll be really exciting as well. Having a planner in a country that you don't live in is just way, way, way easier because she's the point of contact for all these places instead of trying to have to contact me when I don't have like a Korean phone number in the United States. So just solves a lot of problems. So number one, I do recommend getting a planner. Number two, it's also really important that you understand that the wedding timeline in Korea works a lot differently than the wedding timeline in America. For example, my planner gave me this little sheet, and you can see that it says 180 days before the wedding. So people are only planning their weddings 180 days in advance, whereas in America, people spend like a minimum of like a year out from the wedding. So you can see that Korean people are like much more like, there's like a lot less to do, I think, also in terms of planning, also in terms of like how the weddings are just like, you can have way more weddings on the same day. So there's less like competition for a particular venue. So with that in mind, a lot of venues will not even allow you to book too far in advance. So for example, we wanted a wedding sometime in the fall of 2026 and we visited Korea in May of 2025. When we visited in May, pretty much no date that we were interested in was available to book. And actually every year they increase prices due to like inflation and stuff. So they're like, you physically cannot book this date because we don't know what the price is going to be for that date because it's going to change. Like let's say in August, they do like a price renewal change for them, the 2026 like prices and stuff like that. So you kind of have to think about it like that. So for us, it was actually really inconvenient because a lot of the venues that we were touring, we like got our foot in the door for touring the venue because of our planner. But if we didn't have our planner, like they wouldn't have even allowed us to view the venue because we wouldn't have been able to sign a contract for a date that far out. So basically what that means is that you can only tour the venue if you're looking for like a venue less than a year out essentially, or else they won't let you even tour the venue because then prices will change and then they have to kind of like do a different debrief and stuff about the venue and anything that's going to change in the upcoming year. So that could be good for some people because that means you don't have to plan so far out in advance as many people are kind of under the impression of in America. So if you are looking for kind of like a quicker turnaround time for your wedding, Korea is definitely a really good option. Next, you do have to be mindful of how many guests you're going to be bringing because like I said, a lot of venues have a pretty high minimum count. So this is great if you generally want a big wedding and you want it for like a good price. Korea is a good place to have that. But if you want a little bit more of an intimate wedding, your options decrease significantly. So if you are someone who wants to do like a really, really small wedding, Korea may not be the best option for you. Lastly, there will be a lot of additional costs, not just related to the wedding, because you're going to have to fly to Korea a lot more often. You're going to have to stay there. Luckily for me, I have family here, so I'm not really spending money on additional like housing and stuff when I'm here, but paying for flights and stuff, and then when the actual wedding comes, paying for our hotels and flights and stuff for a lot of additional people as well is something that we need to consider. So generally having an international wedding is just a lot of added cost. We definitely thought that we were going to be saving money if we had our wedding in Korea, but that is definitely not going to be the case. But again, like I said, I think for the amount of money that you would be spending in America versus Korea, if it was the same amount, you're still getting a much better experience in Korea, but it's not going to be cheap by any means. So ultimately, what I've learned is that there is a lot of convenience factor that you're getting in Korea, and I think that's also kind of what you're paying for as well. The venue is always going to be all-inclusive. You at least know the minimum amount of money you have to spend, and there's no obligation to spend outside of that. You know that everything's going to look exactly one which way or another because you're going to have like consultations for the exact everything design, and because it's like a one-stop shop at the venue, you can just have a lot more peace of mind that everything is going to be super smooth, and they've done it like a billion times over and over and over again, so you just know that the experience is going to be seamless. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. I don't know how helpful it will be, honestly, because it's very specific and pertaining towards those of you thinking about getting married in Korea, but I just wanted to share with you guys that is an option. I know that traveling to Korea and visiting Korea is like a much more popular thing to do these days, and perhaps you will also get the opportunity to go to a wedding yourself, if not your own, in Korea, to visit Korea and spend some time there, so you kind of get an understanding of the behind the scenes that everything goes into a Korean wedding. Okay, well that brings me to a wrap on today's video. I hope it was helpful. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, and do not forget to check out all the lovely Songmont bags. Again, if you use my code SOMIDOS12, you can get a special offer at checkout. All the links and information will be down in the description, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll definitely see you in the next one. Bye guys!